In this section, we'll deal with percents, sales tax, and discounts. So let's quickly review how to change between fractions and percents, percents to decimals, and decimals to percentage. So use this as a guide as we work through our problems if needed. To go from a fraction to a percent, first convert the fraction to a decimal using your calculator. Once you have that decimal version, multiply the decimal by 100 to convert it to a percentage. So as an example following these steps, if we type 3/4 into our calculator, we'll get the decimal value of 0.75. If we then take 0.75 and multiply it by 100, we'll get our percentage of 75%. Next, to find a percentage to a decimal, it says first find the decimal place in the percentage, and we've got this note. If no decimal place is visible, then the decimal place is to the right of the last listed digit. So for instance, if we just see 97%, then the decimal place is to the right of the 7, because that's our last digit. And then the second step is to move that decimal place 2 places to the left. So we'd go over 1, 2. And excuse me, I said to the left, but if y'all see I did to the right, that was a mistake. So here, 2 places to the left, 1, 2. And that's the new position of the decimal place. So 97% corresponds to a decimal of 0.97. Now to go from a decimal to a percentage, you find the decimal place in the number, and you move the decimal places 2 places to the right. And the result's a percentage. So for example, 1.45, I'd find the decimal place, move it over twice, and we get a percentage of 145. So you notice these two are the reverse of each other. One moves to the left, one moves to the right. The way to keep it in mind is when you're going from percentage to decimal, the resulting value will look smaller, 0.97, so you should go to the left. From decimal to percentage, the resulting number will look larger, so you go to the right. So work on those two details. Percentage to decimal, move 2 places to the left. Decimal to percent, 2 places to the right. So using what we just discussed, let's practice this problem. I'd encourage you to pause the video right now, attempt these on your own, look above to our steps shown if needed, unpause to check your work. So to convert each fraction to a percent, we would first type this into our calculator. 3/5 will become 0.60. And then to turn it into a percentage, you multiply it by 100. The same thing could be done, just move the decimal places 2 places to the right. That's the same thing as multiplying by 100. And we get 60%. So for this step, I know it does say above multiply by 100. That is the exact same thing as moving the decimal place 2 places to the right. So just whichever you prefer. So next for 6/4 is a decimal of 1.5. To convert it to a percent, you either move the decimal place 2 places or equivalently multiply by 100, and we get 150%. So the last example here, 1 divided by 4 in your calculator is 0.25. Move the decimal place 2 places to the right, I see it's 25%, or multiply by 100, and we'll get 25%. This next one, 12 divided by 10, 1.2. I could multiply by 100 or alternatively move the decimal place, and we'll see that's 120%. So here for our next example, I encourage you to pause the video, attempt these 4 on your own, unpause to check your work. So when converting a percent to a decimal, you first find the decimal place. If there's no decimal place written, it's to the right of the last listed digit. So this is 98 point as a decimal place. And then you move the decimal place 2 places to the left. So this will turn into 0.98. Here we've got the decimal place expressed here. I'm going to move 2 places to the left, so 3.4 will turn into 0.034. And often we put a 0 to the left just to help see that placeholder 0 point there. Next for the 0.3%, 0.3, 2 places to the left. We put in the 0 there, so it's going to be 0.003, but to help it be visually more clear, you always put the 0 to the left for small numbers like that. 1.78, the decimals imply to be at the last digit, 2 places to the left. We'll turn it into 1.78%. So here again, we've got a new example. If you would pause, attempt these on your own, unpause to check your work. So decimal to a percent, you find the decimal place and move to the right. So this will become 16%. Move the decimal 2 places to the right. This will become 53.23%. Decimal place 2 places to the right. This will become 237%. Decimal place 2 places to the right, 0.8%. So just as a reminder, kind of combining the steps that we saw above, to go from a fraction to a percent, you go fraction to decimal, and then decimal to percent. So fraction to decimal, use your calculator. So for instance, 3/4, using your calculator becomes 0.75. Then from decimal to percent, you know you move 2 places to the right, the decimal place. So this is 75%. So now that we've gone over that, let's attempt these two. If you would pause the video, unpause to check your work. If you need to, you can rewind and see the section we just covered. So first up is we need to use our calculator to find these values. So 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. To then turn it into a percent, I need to move the decimal place 2 places. So this is the decimal place goes there to the right of the 0, so it's 60%. 15 divided by 8 is a decimal of 1.875. Move the decimal place 2 places, and we get 187.5%. So next we're going to go over how to find a percent of a number. So let's read this word problem. It says a publisher requires an author to reduce the page count, let's underline reduce, by 18%. It is currently 250 pages. How many pages should we remove? So we want to reduce 250 by 18%. The way to do this is to find the percent of a number. We want to find what is 18% of 250 because that's what we need to reduce by. That's our question. If we know what 18% of 250 is, we've got our answer. So to find the percent of a number, you always, step 1, change the percent to a decimal, which we covered doing earlier. So for us, that would be 18%. Well, I find the decimal place, it's to the right of the last digit, and then I move 2 places to the left, so this is equivalently 0.18 as a decimal. And then step 2, multiply the decimal value by the number that we want to figure out. So here our number is 250, and our decimal that we found is 0.18. So that would be 0.18 times 250. We're going to use our calculator here. Is 45 pages should be reduced. So this is a new process that we covered. If you're ever trying to find the percent of a number, then step 1, change the decimal to a percentage, or percent to a decimal, excuse me. And step 2, multiply that decimal value by the number you're trying to find, the percent of what number. So this idea can be applied whenever we deal with sales tax. We deal with percentages of numbers every time you go to a store and you have to pay the sales tax on the total that you purchased. So let's look. Suppose the local sales tax is 7% and you purchased, I need to erase that so we can see, a calculator for $96. How much tax is paid? To find the amount of taxes paid, we want to know what is 7% of 96. So this follows a process that we've done above. To help you practice, I encourage you pause now and attempt this on your own, and then unpause and I'll go through the solution so you can verify. So we first change the percent to a decimal. 7%. We would change that to a decimal by noting the decimal places to the right of the last listed digit. And then we move that over 2 places, so that becomes 0.07, or we write it often as 0.07 to help see that value. That's our decimal. And then we multiply the decimal by the number that we're trying to find the percentage of. So 0.07 times 96. That will give us a tax of 6.72. So now our next question is, what's the calculator's total cost? So keep in mind, how do sales tax work? You pay the total plus the tax is the overall cost. So our original purchase, maybe instead of total, what I meant is the original total as a 96, but that might be confusing because we're finding total cost. Let's call this the original value. So our checkout was $96 plus a tax of 6.72 will equal an overall cost of 102.72. So in this next example, we're asked to find the new value. If instead of reducing the price, we want to mark up, that's the idea of increase the price. It was originally $32.50, but we want to increase it by 15%. So in order to figure out how to increase it by 15%, we need to find 15% of $32.50, then add that increase to $32.50. Now I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this type of problem. The first way is to just find the increase and then add it. So it's kind of a 2-step. So to find 15% of 250, you first, what is the process? 15%, any percent of a number, as we outlined here, is change the percent to a decimal, then multiply that decimal value by the number that you're trying to find the percent of. So for us, I need to change 15% to a decimal. So the decimal's here, 2 places to the left, 0.15 is the decimal value. 0.15 times 32.50. Let's use our calculator. And we get 4.875. Now that's the increase amount. That's our increase. So then we want to add that to the original. So we get 4.875 plus 32.50. And that will be our new price. And we get 37.375. Now for us, since our money, we just use 2 decimal places, we're going to round this up. I looked the last digits of 5. 5 or greater, you round up, so that rounds to $37.38. And that'll be our increased price. So that's option 1 of how to solve this problem. Option 2 of how to solve this problem is to think about what's going on here. If we're increasing it, notice we take the original value and we add the increased 15%. So let me write above this. This value was 0.15 times the original, correct? Plus the original. Now, if we factor this out, do y'all see that the 32.50 is in both places? You can bring that out and you can say, I'm going to bring out the common term, and I'm left with 0.15. And then when I bring out 32.50 of itself, there's only 1 left over. You took 1 of them out. So then this becomes, in our option 2, 32.50 times 0.15 plus 1 is 1.15. So the way this could work is we're essentially multiplying this by the decimal 1.15, but what is 1.15 as a percent? If you move the decimal place 2 places to the right, it's 115%. So you could find 15% of the original and then add that to the original. Or you could say, if I'm going to add that to the original is 100%. So 100% plus 15 more percent will be the new value. You could just directly find 115% of 3250. So I'm going to try to explain. Remember, all of this was just me explaining where does the 115% come from. If you're trying to do option 2, if you understand that idea, all you have to do is calculate this. Anytime you're trying to find an increase, a new increase value, you just do 100 plus the increase. So 100 plus a 15% increase is 115%. I just need to find 115% of 3250. To find 115% of 3250, you say 115 decimal places there, move it 2 places. That is 1.15 as a decimal. Multiply that by 3250. And we get the same value, 37.375. We round that and we'll get a dollar value of 37.38. So take a moment to think to yourself, would you prefer solving this option 1 or option 2? Both will always work, just up to each individual. So next up we have a new formula called percent change. Percent change is always the new value minus the old value divided by the old value times 100. And because there's a subtraction, it's very important that you keep the order correct. So remember, it's new minus old. So to go through the steps of how you'd find percent change, we use this formula, but just to help explain it step by step if it's helpful. Step 1 is you find the old value and the new value based on the word problem. The old value is the initial or the starting point. The new value is the final or the ending point. Then you subtract that to find the difference, new minus old. Then you divide the difference by the old value, so that difference divided by the old value, and then you multiply it by 100 to get the percentage, and then you interpret the result. If our overall percent change is positive, then we increased. If it's a negative value, then we decreased. So let's use these steps to solve these examples. We've got 2 examples. We'll go over the first one together, and then I'll ask that you do the second one on your own. So if 6 is increased to 10, find the percent increase. So they told us 6 is increased to 10. So 6 is our old, 10 is the new. So percent change, and we call it percent change to make it clear that it could be increase or decrease. This problem specifically told us it is percent increase. It's new minus old divided by old. I'd recommend you write this out along with me on your scratch paper. As you do the problems, write it out enough time until you have this formula memorized. So 10 minus 6 over, now what should go on the bottom, 10 or 6? The old value, so 6, times 100. So we'll do the subtraction first. 10 minus 6 is 4. 4 divided by 6 times 100. So let's get out our calculators. 4 divided by 6 is this value, times 100. And it's going to be that many. Let's round to 2 decimal places. And we get 66.6. Okay, now to round to 2 decimal places, you go to the 3rd decimal place. 5 or greater rounds up. Less than 5 stays the same. This is 6, which is greater, so we round that up. So that last decimal place rounds up to 7. So it's a 66.67% increase. Now, if y'all would please pause the video and attempt this on your own. Unpause to check your work. So 10 is decreased to 2. So this was our old. 10 was the old. This was our new. 2 minus 10 over 2 times 100. 2 minus 10 is negative 8 divided by 2 times 100. So 0 minus 8 is negative 8 divided by 2 times 100. And we get negative 400% decrease. So an electronics score marked up a laptop from the store's cost of $1,200 to a selling price of this amount. They're asking what was the percent markup. So this was the original old price. We increased it by a percentage and got this new price. So we know percent change is new minus old divided by old times 100. Let's fill in our formula. And we get new of 1464 minus 1200 divided by 1200 times 100. Now we can use our calculator. 1464 minus 1200, 264 divided by 1200 times 100, 0.22 times 100, and we get 22% increase was the markup. So the enrollment in a community college declined from this value to this value in the school year. Find the percent decrease to the nearest tenth of a percent. Nearest tenth of a percent is telling us how we should round. So a tenth of a percent is equivalent to rounding to 1 decimal place. Just as a quick review, if it's 100th of a percent, that's 2 decimal places. 1,000th, that's 3 decimal places. So I'm going to identify the new and old. So this was the old value, and it became this new value. Remember, new and older time period, what was first, what was second, not necessarily bigger or smaller, because in this case, our old value was actually larger than our new one because we're actually decreasing. So it's new minus old divided by old times 100. Write that out enough times till you have it memorized. Okay, new is the 11,350 minus 12,750 over the old 12,750 times 100. We'll use our calculator and we'll find this. 11,350 minus 12,750 negative 1,400 over 12,750 times 100. And we get this value. Now we round to 1 decimal place. I'm going to use this squiggly equal to show I rounded it. To round to 1 decimal place, you look at the second decimal. 5 or greater, you round up. Less than 5, it stays the same. So here I need to round the 0.9 up. Now think 0.9 has nowhere higher to go. It would go up to like 10, right? So the way you work with this, if it needs to round up and it's a 0.9, then this rounds up to 10, and you think of it, the 0 stays here, and you add a 1 to the next place. So 0.98, if we're rounding this up, this goes to a 10, but you add the 1 there. So this rounds to 11.0% to the 10th decimal place. So that's it for this section video. If you have any questions, as always, reach out to me. I'll be very happy to answer them, and I'll see you in the next video.